There's no secret to the magical moments in my life. I give full credit to my amazing wife for all of the wonderful experiences that I have. Yeah, I'm sorry, there's no teaser for today's video. You see, this video is going to go live on my anniversary. So instead of a teaser, today you get to sit through me leaving a message for Mrs. Disaster Tour Guide in honor of our anniversary. So, Mrs. Disaster Tour Guide, I just wanted to say, I love you. There are certainly a lot of reasons why I could say this. I mean, I could say I love you because you're beautiful, and that is certainly true, but it's more than that. And I could say that I love you because you are intelligent, because you are fiercely intelligent. I could say that I love you because I have the joy of sharing my life with someone who shares my favorite hobby with me, and it's amazing that I got to marry a nerdy gamer girl and that we can spend hours talking about our favorite game together. And beyond that, I am just amazed by your skill at learning and absorbing new languages. I may have some good dialogue, but I am impressed by your command of dialect. However, as amazing as your mind may be, there's more to it than that. And I could say that I love you because of the support and care that you give me and our son. Earlier this year, I went through that medical emergency and I basically lost the use of my arms and my hands for 2 months. And during that time, you had to step up and take care of me and take care of our son and also hold down a job. And it is beyond words to say how impressed I am of how well you took care of our family and how strong of a partner I have. But my love goes even beyond that. You see, I love you because you are a courageous woman. There are plenty of people who do good things. There are plenty of people who do great things. But it is rare in this world to see people who do courageous things. To see people who step outside what is easy or what is comfortable or what is fun to do what is right. Those moments are few and far between, and when you see them, they're inspiring. And I just have to say that in you, I see them often. I see someone who is willing to live with integrity and courage and fight for what is right day in and day out. And there have been so many occasions where I've wondered if I could ever have the strength that I see in you. So, Mrs. Disaster Tour Guide, you inspire me. You cause me to want to live a better life. You cause me to be the best version of myself that I can be. And I want you to know that I rolled a critical success the day I convinced you to go on this adventure with me. So happy anniversary, honey. I love you so much, and you are just absolutely amazing. Okay, sappy stuff over. Let's get back to the video. Today, we're going to be reviewing Secrets of Magic for Pathfinder 2nd Edition on this episode of The Local Disaster Tour Guide. Hello travelers and tourists, my name is Mark and I am the local disaster tour guide. That's right, I am a storyteller who just started a brand new home campaign that is heavily featuring relic rules from the Pathfinder 2e Game Mastery Guide. And then, Paizo went and published 2 brand new categories of relics in Secrets of Magic. Thanks Paizo, now I've got to figure out how to make use of those as well. Welcome to a journey through the fantastic world of TTRPGs like Pathfinder and Starfinder. Today, we're going to be doing a review of the latest core product for Pathfinder 2nd Edition, which is Secrets of Magic. This book introduces 2 new playable classes, the Magus and the Summoner. It also comes with new magical backgrounds, new spells, and a variety of other options to help expand magic as a storytelling tool in your Pathfinder 2nd Edition games. It's a very exciting product, and we're going to be talking about what this product has to offer, and I'm going to give my thoughts on this book and what you might want to consider if you're looking at purchasing this book. Now, it's been a while since I've done one of my review videos on this channel, so let's get a couple of things out of the way. First, as you can tell, this is the special edition version of Secrets of Magic. Paizo did not send this to me, and this is not a paid review in any fashion. This is a book that I purchased of my own free will, and I shelled out the money for the special edition version of it. Yes, that's right, I'm a Paizo fanboy. Now, while I do my best to offer a fair and balanced review of any product that I talk about on this channel, that does highlight an important point, which is always take any review that I do with a grain of salt. It is always better to try a product before you buy a product than it is to just take the advice of some random guy on the internet. Looking at a product for yourself, borrowing it, or checking it out at your fine local gaming store will always give you a better idea of if the product is right for you and your gaming group. However, I will still try to give an overview of what is in this book, and I will try to give my thoughts on how this book might be useful to you and your gaming table, so that if you're thinking about making a purchase decision, you'll have a better idea of what to consider as you're thinking about that purchase. But anyways, with all of that in mind, let's get started. So, if you've seen any of my previous reviews, you know that I like to begin at the end with any of the reviews that I do. I like to talk about my overall thoughts on a product and then work my way through the product so you can kind of see how I arrived at that conclusion. There will be timestamps down in the video description so that you can jump around to the different sections of the book, and those timestamps will be organized by chapter. So if you have particular topics that you're interested in, you can use those timestamps to help you find the appropriate section. But for now, let's talk about my big picture thoughts on Secrets of Magic and the reason why it's really hard for me to give this book an overall grade. You see, last year I did a prediction video on Secrets of Magic. After the playtest was over for the Magus and the Summoner, I sat down and I decided to try and predict where I thought Paizo was going to go with Secrets of Magic and what sort of content we could expect when the book actually hit our gaming tables. And yeah, I was way off. Like, we're just going to pretend that video doesn't exist. Don't go click this link. Don't see anything that I tried to predict, because I missed. Paizo went in a direction I did not expect with this book, and that's one of the first things that I want to talk about, because when this book arrived, I quickly realized that I had a different sort of product in my hands than I was envisioning last year when this product was announced. Now, this may be a little bit of a weird distinction, but I do want to talk about it because if you're looking at Secrets of Magic, there is a possibility that this book is not going to be exactly what you were anticipating, and it could be off-putting when you're considering purchasing this particular product. Now, real quick, I'll go ahead and give you my overall grade. I give Secrets of Magic an overall grade of a B+. This book is an incredible toolbox of magical options that game masters and storytellers can use to enhance the magical portion of the stories that they are creating. And I really want you to focus on that phrase, magical toolbox, because that is going to be the core idea of this entire review. When I first heard that Secrets of Magic was coming, I thought Secrets of Magic was going to be a player resource book. And the best equivalent that I can offer in describing my original picture of Secrets of Magic would have been like the Advanced Player's Guide, but with more of an emphasis on magic. I thought Secrets of Magic was going to be, here's the book that you hand to players who want to play a caster of some kind, so that they can get new toys, new tricks, new fun things to do with their wizards and sorcerers and bards and whatever else they might be playing. When I think about mainline products for, well, role-playing games in general, but in Pathfinder in this case, I typically imagine them as falling into one of two distinct categories: player-focused content and game master-focused content. And I usually try to ask the question, is this a book that a player is going to use, or is this a book that a game master is going to use? And then when I evaluate books, I try to look at them through that particular lens. Who's going to use this? How are they going to use it? And are they going to get good use out of it? I envision Secrets of Magic being a player-focused book that centered around magical content, and I imagined getting things like new subclasses for the different casters, and new magic items and new spells, and I just imagined it as this big playground of options for players to use. And that's not what Secrets of Magic is. It doesn't fit into these neat player-focused, game master-focused categories. This book certainly has player-focused content, but at the same time, a lot of the content is very heavily focused on things that would be happening on the Game Master side of the screen. This book doesn't fit neatly into either of those two categories, and so when I first opened this book, it was kind of strange for me because I wasn't sure how to evaluate this book. Oftentimes when I do a review, I ask the question, how much use will a particular book or product see? And I use that as my gauge to determine whether or not it would be a solid investment or something you might want to put off till down the road. In this case, I found a book that would occasionally be useful to players and would occasionally be useful to storytellers, and it's kind of hard to evaluate because I can see this book bouncing from one side of the screen to the other, and so it's a little harder for me to say exactly how often this book might get use at your gaming table. I'll be honest, I've been all over the place in trying to evaluate how much I think tables will use this material. I've been everywhere from the D range for a product to the B range for a product, and I feel like I could justify any grade between those measures. However, my grading system is not just how often a book will get used, but also the quality of the content that has been presented. And at the end of the day, while this book may reside somewhere between the Advanced Player's Guide and the Game Mastery Guide in terms of actual usage, I do have to admit that this book shows the same quality of content that I found in both the APG and the Game Mastery Guide, and because of the overall high quality of the content and how engaging I found the content to be, I ultimately settled on, I think that this is a B+ product. The usage may sometimes be situational, and the mileage may vary from player to player or game master to game master, but I think that there's a lot of quality content here, and the overall quality of that content brings this up to a book that I enjoy, that I definitely appreciate, and that I think that players and game masters should check out because I think it will inspire some fantastic stories. So the big picture on Secrets of Magic, at least where I'm coming from, is look at this book as a toolbox, a magical toolbox, a series of options that players or game masters might use to enhance the magical portion of the stories that they are telling together. If you view this book in that light, I think you will get the most mileage out of this book, and I think you will discover some pretty amazing stuff along the way. Let's dive into the individual chapters and talk about what we can find. So, Chapter 1 of this book is called The Essentials of Magic, and Chapter 1, by and large, can be considered a chapter of flavor for Magic in Pathfinder 2nd Edition. This chapter is structured around a series of treatises that discuss different magical topics in Pathfinder 2nd Edition as they would be viewed inside of the game world. So, for example, Pathfinder 2nd Edition gives us 4 different traditions of magic: arcane, divine, occult, and primal. And in this chapter, they offer different excerpts from treatises that you might find inside of the world of Golarion about the different types of magic. So they have this very academic explanation of what arcane magic is, and they also offer a sampling of a lecture that a divine caster gave on the subject of divine magic. These different writings reflect how people in-world would think of the different types of magic that they might use. They also do this for the 4 different magical essences inside the game, and they also do this for the 8 different magical schools that spells are divided into. And overall, it's just really cool flavor. In terms of crunch inside the game, you're not going to get much in this chapter. There are some magical backgrounds and there are some rare magical backgrounds. My favorite rare magical background is the Song of the Deep magical background, where your character somehow survived a wreck at sea and you now have the ability to breathe water. The backgrounds are cool, but outside of the background options, you're not going to find anything that you're going to be putting on your character sheet. The majority of this chapter is flavor, but the flavor is good. One of the things I really appreciate about how they did the flavor of these chapters is that in these in-world writings that they use, they actually present multiple viewpoints even on similar topics. For example, in the Arcane Magic Treatise, they present the predominant theory of arcane magic for the Arcanumerium and Absalom, but they also present the predominant theory for arcane magic that would be taught in the Magambaya in the Mwangi Expanse. So even for arcane magic, they offer 2 different flavors for that particular style of magic, and they do this very consistently. The Occult Treatise is kind of funny because the guy who wrote it is complaining about how all the cultists out there don't even understand the magic that they're using. The flavor here is really well done, and it makes for some good light reading if you want to get inside the mindset that your character might have if you were playing a character in universe. Also, I just want to pause for a moment and talk about the artwork inside of this book. The artwork is a little bit different from some of the other products that Paizo has put out in Pathfinder 2e, in that it feels very eclectic in this book. The style changes a lot, which fits with this different series of treatises that you're supposedly reading, but I really appreciate the fact that they changed up the artwork and they changed up the writing style in all of these different topics to really give you the flavor of the world that you're playing in. And I do want to shout out that I love, in particular, some of the artwork that they do for the different schools of magic. The enchantment artwork is creepy as all get out. And for those of you who have been playing World of Warcraft for a little too long, Mr. T would probably appreciate the Transmutation School illustration as much as I did. And if you're old enough to get that joke, I'm sorry, but I hope you appreciated it. But overall, Chapter 1 is a chapter of flavor, and it's in the later chapters that you're going to get to the more serious mechanical options inside of the book. Chapter 2 is probably going to be the main draw of Secrets of Magic for a lot of people, because it's the classes chapter, which is going to introduce the Magus class and the Summoner class. It also offers the multi-class archetype for both. The Magus is a Gish class, and if you're not familiar with that terminology, it basically just means it's a class that is a hybrid of both a martial class and a caster class, and they seek to find ways to blend the use of magic into their practice of martial arts, be it the use of weaponry, or in some cases what you and I might more commonly call martial arts, the use of their body as a weapon. Their core class ability is called Spell Strike. It's a 2-action activity that allows them to stick a spell into their weapon and strike an enemy and unleash the spell on the target of their strike, essentially combining their attack and the spell into a single activity. The Magus comes with several subclasses, which are known as hybrid studies, and they all focus on different types of weapons that the Magus might choose to use. For example, the Inexorable Iron hybrid study focuses on the use of massive 2-handed weapons, while one of the new hybrid studies that was introduced, the Sparkling Targe, actually creates a Magus that focuses on the use of a shield and can charge magic into their shield. The Summoner, on the other hand, is a class that focuses on the bond between your character and a powerful magical creature called an Eidolon. Your character has built a special bond with this creature, a bond so powerful and so close that it manifests in the form of a magical rune that appears both on you and your creature, and you share many stats with your creatures, such as your hit points and actions. You can command your Eidolon into battle, and you have a variety of ways to aid your Eidolon and make them more effective in combat. Now, both the Magus and the Summoner are limited spellcasters in a fashion. They do not get nearly as many spell slots as other casting classes would. I've seen a lot of different terminology for their spellcasting progression used on the internet, and I'm not sure if Paizo has an official term. The most common one I've seen refers to it as wave casting, but essentially what this means is that both the Magus and the Summoner will eventually have access to 2 levels of spells instead of the normal 10 levels of spells that you see with other classes. Now, both classes still have pretty good access to cantrips, meaning that they can continue to put out magical damage regularly throughout the day, but the overall level of magical power at their disposal is going to be lower than you would expect for other spellcasting classes, and it's one of the things that you have to consider when you're looking at these 2 classes. Now, the Magus is going to pull its spells from the arcane spellcasting tradition, while the Summoner, and this is one of my favorite things about the class, can pull its spells from any of the 4 different spellcasting traditions based upon which particular Eidolon they have developed a bond with. So, for example, Phantom Eidolons will give you access to the Occult spell tradition, while Construct Eidolons will give you access to the Arcane spell tradition. I enjoy that nuance to this class, that the type of creature you are bonded to influences the type of magic you get, and I think it makes the Summoner a lot more interesting than the first edition version of this class. In fact, while I'm not going to do a deep dive on either class here, I'm going to save them for my classic introduction series at some point in time, I will say this: the Magus and the Summoner, I feel, are both more interesting and more well balanced inside of this edition than they were first edition. I think both of these classes are very solid, and I like the things that Paizo has done with both the Magus and the Summoner. And I'll go ahead and talk about one of these small things that Paizo did that really makes me appreciate how they designed these classes, and that is how they have varied the Eidolons in terms of their ability arrays. Every type of Eidolon comes with 2 different options for their ability scores, and they kind of nudge you a little bit that if you and your game master wanted to invent your own ability array to further vary the types of Eidolons available in each category, you've got the information, you can do that. Simple example, let's say you're interested in the Plant Eidolon. Inside the book, you have stats for the Guardian Plant and the Creeper Plant, which have the potential to play very differently and offer some nice variety inside the game. So I really enjoy this chapter. I think these classes are well done. The only downside here is that they didn't expand magical options for other caster classes inside the game. I wish they'd given us a little bit more for other casters, but I cannot complain about what they gave us with the Magus and the Summoner. Excellent work. So next up is Chapter 3, which is the Spells chapter, and, well, I feel like I'm going to be skipping over this chapter a little too quickly in the review, but it's kind of one of those, to really go in depth on this chapter would take way too much time. Let me just say, I do really appreciate the Spells chapter in Secrets of Magic. Overall, you're looking at 76 pages of new spells, including regular spells, focus spells, and new rituals. There are a variety of spells and rituals here, from spells that use a variable number of actions to cast, to spells that you can cast as a reaction, and you even see spells or rituals with uncommon and rare tags, offering you some options that might be a little bit harder to find in Game World. Truth be told, there is a ton of fun stuff in the spells chapter, and I am definitely going to be dropping a lot of content from the spells chapter in my Spellslingers Academy Shorts videos for a while to come. There's some fun stuff here. Some of my favorites, there is a spell that was clearly written by someone who hates Aesop's fables, and it flips the old story of the tortoise and the hare on its head as a magical spell. There's also a spell called Lose the Path that you can cast as a reaction, where you can mess with someone while they're taking a stride action and cause all of the terrain that they move through to count as difficult terrain. Or if they critically fail their save, you can actually misdirect them, take control of their stride, and decide where they're going to move. I was trying to have some fun with Lose the Path when I did the Psychic playtest last weekend. Sadly, all of the monsters kept making their will saves every time I tried to use that spell, but I look forward to the day that one of those lands, because that spell's a lot of fun. For an example of some of the new rituals that you can gain access to, one of my favorites is the Mind Swap ritual, which does exactly what you think it does and allow two creatures to swap bodies and take control of each other. Seriously, there is a ton of good content in the spells chapter, and it would take too long to dive into all of the fun stuff that's in here, but Paizo did a good job offering us some new content, some new spells to use, and every class is going to have some fun tricks that they can add to their repertoire with this particular chapter, so I definitely enjoy what we have. If I had to nitpick this chapter a little bit, I wish they had done just a bit more with uncommon and rare spells. We do get some examples of those spells in this chapter, but I wish that they'd gone a little bit more. However, overall, that is a very small gripe. By and large, this is a good chapter with a lot of great content. Okay, fine. I tried to just put this in my spell short series, but I'll go ahead and mention it again here. Incarnate spells are absolutely amazing, and Summon Kaiju is one of the best additions to spellcasting in any game ever. I will stand on the hill and I will fight you on that one. Paizo, thank you so much for Incarnate spells. They are amazing. But now let's move into the last two chapters of Secrets of Magic and talk about Chapter 4, Magic Items. And I'll go ahead and tell you, Chapter 4 and Chapter 5 are the two places where that magical toolbox mentality that I talked about in the overview, this is where that's really going to start to shine through. So in Chapter 4, they give us new magical items. And there is content in this chapter that is in line with what you would expect to see in a Magic Items chapter. You're going to get new consumable items, you're going to get new permanent items, and they provide that nice Magic Items by level table as a quick reference if you're trying to pick items for your character build as a player or if you're trying to hand out items as a game master. These are things that we expect to see and definitely things that we appreciate. But the bulk of this chapter actually revolves around 6 new types of items that you can add to your game. Fulus, grimoires, magical tattoos, personal staves, spell catalysts, and spell hearts. Fulus are drawn very much from Asian-themed ideas of magic and are basically pieces of paper with magical runes etched onto them that you can hang on things in order to offer some magical benefit. And you can place Fulus on your armor, on your weapons, or even on buildings and different things like that, all to provide different types of magical effects. One of my favorite Fulus in the book is one that you hang on a building to protect it from rising floodwaters. Grimoires are magical spell books. They are intended as a tool for spellcasters to reference and to use, and a spellcaster who makes use of a grimoire is going to find special benefits that come from using these particular spellbooks. Magical tattoos are, well, magical tattoos, exactly what the name says. They are magical items that are inscribed directly into the skin of your character, and it does note in the book that they are invested magical items, meaning that they count against the limit of magical items that your character can use, but they are certainly easier to hang on to in comparison to weapons or cloaks or other magical gear that your character might use. By the way, they even offer a special feat to allow you to have access to magical tattoos a little bit easier than the normal crafting requirements you might find for other categories of magical items. Personal staves are a twist on the rules for magical staffs. The idea behind this is that as a wizard, you can invent your own staff that is invested with the spells that you consider the most important to store in that particular magic item. It is build your own staff rules. And I do appreciate this because with things like the Staff Nexus Wizard subclass, the ability to customize your own staff is definitely a rule set that Pathfinder 2e would benefit from, so I'm glad that they added this. And they do a good job of limiting these rules, so you can't just build a staff that happens to have all my favorite spells. I won't dive into the full rules here, but they basically say that when you build a personal staff, you need to have a particular trait, such as fire or sonic or light, a trait that spells can have, and that particular trait needs to be the core identifying theme of the staff that you are building. So it's flavorful, and it prevents these rules from getting out of hand. Next up is my favorite category in this chapter, which is the spell catalyst. They are special consumable material components that you can use when you are casting a spell to improve what that particular spell does. Now, they only offer a small sampling of some different spell catalysts that you can find inside of the game. A good example is the Fire Starter Pellets, which you can use to add persistent fire damage when you cast the Fireball spell. But Paizo has very clearly added a unique storytelling tool, and it would not be very difficult for players and game masters to come up with their own unique spell catalyst to enhance favorite spells inside of the game. And I really wanted to do a pocket sand joke as the opening joke for this video, but I resisted the urge. So you should be proud of me, it took a lot of willpower to do that. Finally, this chapter adds a new category of items called Spell Hearts, which are, functionally, they are talismans that are not consumables. That's basically the play space that these occupy. You affix them to weapons or to your armor just like you would a talisman, and you still have to activate them. But unlike a talisman, they are not consumed when they are used. And one of the things that's interesting about the spell hearts is quite often they have an effect if you put them on a weapon, and a different effect if you put them on your armor, meaning that they're a little bit more flexible than your traditional talisman would be. For example, the Flaming Star spell heart would offer you fire resistance if you put it on your armor, and would add fire damage to your weapon if you attached it to your weapon. Now, there is a little bit more that I would like to say about Chapter 4, but I want to talk about Chapter 5 first, because the same principle is going to apply to both. So let's move on to Chapter 5, which is the Book of Unlimited Magic, or the Book of Variant Rules for Spellcasting. That's the best way to look at this chapter. This chapter offers 12 different variants for magic inside of Pathfinder 2nd Edition. Now, some of these are going to be more player-focused, such as Elementalism, and others are probably going to be more Game Master-focused, such as Ley Lines, but at the end of the day, all of these serve the same purpose. They are options to diversify the different types of magic that are available in Pathfinder 2e. Your options are Cathartic Magic, Elementalism, Flexible Preparation, Geomancy, Ley Lines, Pervasive Magic, Shadow Magic, Soul Seeds, Soul-Forged Armaments, Thessalonian Rune Magic, True Names, and Wellspring Magic. And this video can't run forever. How am I going to get through all of these? Okay, so I'm still absorbing all of these, but at the moment, my favorite one is definitely the first one in this chapter, which is Cathartic Magic. It is magic that is based on emotion. If you decide to make use of Cathartic Magic, you have to pick a particular emotional state, such as joy, pride, or remorse, and you will gain a series of benefits and penalties related to that particular emotional state. For example, if your Cathartic Magic is based around remorse, it triggers anytime an ally drops to 0 HP and gives you the option to immediately move closer to your ally and gives you a bonus to trying to heal that ally with your magic. However, after a set period of time, you have emotional fallout, which will inflict a penalty on you until you have a chance to settle your emotions back down. Additionally, each particular emotional state is going to come with a unique spell that it has access to. The storytelling potential here is amazing, and I guarantee you I'm going to be doing a follow-up video on cathartic magic because there is a lot I want to dive into here. Just imagine for a moment a healer with remorse-based cathartic magic. The story writes itself, but I don't have the time to dive into it now, so just know cathartic magic is my favorite at the moment. There's some good stuff here. Let's keep going. Elementalism is also very interesting. It focuses on spellcasters who, well, play with the elements. And elementalism can actually offer completely unique spell lists that are separate from the normal 4 spellcasting traditions inside the game. Elementalism also offers some unique subclass options for the druid, and even has a few unique options for elemental-focused monks as well. Next up, you have flexible preparation. There are some classes in the game, such as wizards and clerics, that at the start of the day, they prepare particular spells, and then when it comes time to use those spells, whatever spell is in that spell slot is the spell that they have to use. Flexible preparation allows prepared spellcasters to have more flexibility in how they use their spells. They get fewer spell slots, but they get the ability to switch between prepared spells when it comes to using those spell slots, and it allows prepared spellcasters to kind of occupy this middle space between wizards and sorcerers or prepared and spontaneous casters. It's very interesting. I haven't had a chance to playtest it yet, so I'm curious about how it will go, but the Arcanist was my favorite class in Pathfinder 1e, so I do want to run one of these, and I do want to see exactly what they bring to the table. Next up is Geomancy, which allows spellcasters to gain unique benefits tied to a particular type of terrain. And I'm just going to go ahead and say that Nonat did probably the best video I have seen on Geomancy in Secrets of Magic. So rather than just trying to dive into all of that myself, here's a link to Nonat's video. He did about the best presentation you could possibly do. I strongly recommend it. Go check it out. Geomancy sounds like a lot of fun. Next up is ley lines. And ley lines represent places where magic naturally flows and where magic might naturally pool, allowing spellcasters to have access to more power than normal. Now, the rules for ley lines are a little complex, and this definitely feels like a rule set that I think is more of a game master tool than a player tool, but I think if you're a player who is interested in ley lines, it's something you could talk to your storyteller about, because I could definitely see some interesting defend the holy site or gather power for this unique ritual kind of stories that you could do with ley lines. I think there's storytelling potential here, but I feel like it is mostly a game master tool rather than a player tool. One of the fun ones in this book is pervasive magic, which imagines a setting where magic is extremely common. And functionally what pervasive magic does is it just gives every class feats that allows every class to get at least a little bit of magic. So if you want to run a story where everyone might have access to a few cantrips or a few magical tricks that they know how to do, or might even be able to learn some basic spellcasting, pervasive magic can allow for a very high magic style of play in your Pathfinder 2e games. And then there is shadow magic, which is a type of magic where you have forever sworn off the ability to use light spells, but you have gained access to unique powers and options that come from the magic that hides in dark places. And Paizo, we need to talk, because I just did an entire video on animal companions, and then you go and release shadow animal companions on me? That video was a lot of work. You could have warned me this was coming. But if you're looking for a flavorful take on a mage who deals with dark powers, shadow magic might be a fun option for you. Next up is Soul Seeds, which is a continuation of the relics rules that are found in the Game Mastery Guide, and in some ways, an advancement of the relic rules that are found in the Game Mastery Guide. You see, in the Game Mastery Guide, relics are items that can grow in power as your character gains levels throughout their adventuring career. Well, soul seeds are magical powers that are not necessarily tied to items, but they still grow with you throughout your adventuring career. They give us 2 new soul seeds, and basically the soul seeds can be relics, or you can take the options from relics in the Game Mastery Guide and turn them into soul seeds. It can really go both ways. But soul seeds are basically just expanded relic rules, and I recently started a relics themed campaign for my home gaming group. So I'm both excited to have new options and also a little stressed out that I have to figure out how to use said new options after I already got my campaign started. Next up is Soul-Forged Armaments, and there's a lot that I could dive into here. So for now we're just going to say that Soul-Forged Armaments offers a special archetype that allows you to bind your character to a particular magical item, such as a weapon or suit of armor, that you can then unlock special powers, and whatever that soul-forged armament, whatever that item may be, is going to have a particular purpose. A purpose that it wants you to pursue, and you can actually gain corruption by veering too far from the purpose of that particular item. The artwork for this particular chapter, by the way, features Sela, and if you've been following my Wrath of the Righteous playthrough, you know that I'm a big fan of Sela from Pathfinder 1st Edition, so it's kind of nice to see this artwork of her bonding with this powerful magical armor. But if you're looking for a story that bonds your character to a particular magical item, Soul-Forged Armaments is for you. Again, that was a very quick introduction, but that's the kind of stories that we're talking about here. Next up is Thessalonian Rune Magic, and if you're familiar with the lore of Golarion, you know that Thessalonian Rune Magic is its own complex storyline that is kind of a twist on the 7 deadly sins concept. But essentially, Thessalonian Rune Magic is sort of a super specialization in a particular school of magic. If you think about the wizard subclasses like Abjurer or Evoker, Thessalonian Rune Magic goes farther, giving you more benefits for a specialization, but at the same time offering heavier restrictions. Again, there's a lot going on here, and I really feel like that is underselling all of the story beats you can use for Thessalonian Rune Magic, but that's a basic introduction. By the way, if you're a fan of very old school D&D wizard specialization, Thessalonian Rune Magic is for you. It's the storytelling update of that particular mechanic. If you're not familiar with really old school wizard specialization, don't worry about it too much. But it does draw from some very classic game mechanics that have been seen in previous editions of fantasy RPGs. After that, we have True Names, and True Names is almost its own unique set of rules, offering a unique cantrip for using True Names, offering unique skill checks related to True Names. For those of you who are not familiar with True Names, the way it's explained in this book is everybody has a multitude of names. Public names, private names, and a true name. True names are secret names that not even the person themselves might know, that reflects the true nature of the person, and if you know someone's true name, it gives you power over them. They offer rules for researching true names, and they also offer unique cantrips, unique skill checks, unique things that you can do if you happen to learn someone's true name. So it's a complicated mix of rules, but it's a classic storytelling trope, and it's definitely something I could see players and game masters getting some good mileage out of, especially in slow burn style campaigns where researching your villains could take up a decent chunk of the story that you're telling. And last but not least, we have Wellspring Magic, which is wild magic by another name. Let's just call it what it is. This is an option for spontaneous spellcasters that allows them to potentially regain spells at the start of dangerous or challenging encounters. Regaining these spells can give your spellcasters access to their highest level spells regularly throughout the day, but there is some risk and there is a time limit that goes with these regained spell slots. If you don't use them quickly enough, you'll get a random magical surge powered by that spell slot that you didn't use in time. So it's basically 2nd edition's take on a wild magic system, and if you enjoy using wild magic in your games, it is definitely something I could recommend. I have used wild magic in Pathfinder 1st edition, and I do think it would be fun to play with the Wellspring Magic rules from time to time in 2e. I don't know if I would make it a regular thing, but I can see some pretty fun chaos coming out of this. But, wow, that was a lot. That was 18 brand new mechanics between Chapter 4 and Chapter 5 that Secrets of Magic is bringing to the table. And as you can imagine, you're talking 2 to 4 pages for each of these different concepts, covering so many different types of stories. That's kind of why I call this book a magical toolbox. In terms of sheer number of options, Secrets of Magic isn't necessarily going to bring a lot to the table. The spells chapter is pretty good, but a lot of other stuff, there's a sample here, there's a collection there, there's some neat ideas, but if you want to take those ideas and run with them, you are probably going to need to build on them to use them. So what Paizo has done is, rather than just giving us a big collection of things that we can take as players, they've given us tools to build our own stories when we're using magic at our gaming tables. So ultimately, your mileage with Secrets of Magic is going to vary based on which options you're interested in and the work you're willing to do to build out the options that you would like to see. If you're a game master who wants to use pervasive magic and ley lines to really make a high magic story, you can do that. But it is going to take you some extra work. By the same token, if you're a player who's interested in grimoires and personal staves, you can definitely build some unique items for your character, but again, you're probably not going to take just what's in the book. You're going to have to flesh out your own ideas in order to get the maximum value from what Secrets of Magic presents. There's a lot of good stuff here, but it does take some work to get the maximum benefit. Still, at the end of the day, this is a book with a lot of fantastic ideas, and it really opens up some neat storytelling ground, so I love what this book has to offer. But let me turn the conversation over to you. What do you think about Secrets of Magic? Do you agree with my assessment? Are there options that you would like me to dive into deeper with future videos? And are there things that I overlooked that you think need to be highlighted? Leave your thoughts in the comments below. Also, if you enjoyed this video, like it and share it, subscribe to the channel. I encourage you to be a part of the conversation. You can find a link to my Discord and to my Patreon down in the video description as well. Thank you so much for being a part of the conversation. And to Mrs. Disaster Tour Guide, happy anniversary. I love you so much, honey. May all of you have a wonderful day.